Hello, if you bought my hand and wand embroidery kit, then this is your tutorial. We're gonna go ahead and jump right in. We're gonna be using DMC embroidery floss, and it comes in 6 strands. For this kit and these stitches, we're only gonna need 2 of the 6 strands at a time. So when you go to thread your needle, make sure you take off 2 strands and don't use all 6. Let's go ahead and start with the back stitch. It is a great foundational stitch, and I'm gonna start with this coral color here, and I've already got my needle and thread ready and knotted, so let's go ahead and start. So I'm just gonna come up right here where this sort of like bottom meets the body of this flower, and for the back stitch you just make your first stitch, and then you come up about a stitch length away. So this space needs to be about the same length as this first stitch, and then just stitch back to the base of that first stitch. And then we're going to keep doing that. So we're going to come up, and then we're going to stitch back to the base of that last stitch. Then come up again and do the same thing. Just go into the base of the last stitch. The back stitch is really easy. It's really beautiful and fun. It's one of those that can do so much with. Just a really great foundational stitch, and since this is a beginner friendly embroidery kit, it's one that I really knew I wanted to include. So I'd love to know why you chose this kit. If you have a reason, if you want to put it in the comments. You may have guessed, given the hand in wand, that it's based on the Magician Tarot card. It's just usually a male figure on the typical tarot deck, so I just thought it'd be good if it was a more feminine looking hand. I thought that would be really fun. So now that I've got this top, I'm just gonna come back to this part here just by coming up here about a stitch length away and then going back towards there, and then coming back up at the point, then going back to the base of that last stitch, and then keep going, go back to the base of the previous stitch, and then one more time just to sort of finish this out, and then on the very top here, and then we'll just keep going and get the flower done. So yeah, I mean, I would love to know if you just liked the image itself, or if you are into tarot. It's always really fun to hear why people want to embroider the ones that they choose. And we'll do one last stitch here. So we're gonna come up at the base of this stitch here, and then go back to the base of the last stitch just to close it all off. That's the back stitch. Pretty easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and tie this off camera so that I don't bump the camera, and then we can go ahead and do some more back stitching, because the white thread has back stitching and the French knot, which you're going to learn after the back stitch. So this for this white. You'll see this is also the back stitch, and then we have some French knots here. So we're going to go ahead, do just this little bit more back stitching. I'm going to come up through, oh, let me get on camera here, so I can come up through here, and then we'll learn the French knot. Go back down. And there's something very like meditative about the back stitch, I think. It's really, can just start going with the flow and do some really fun designs with the back stitch. There we go. And let's go ahead and learn to do the French knot. So you can kind of see the French knots that we have here, and we're going to do this side. So let's start with this first one. We're going to come up through the middle of this dot. Then we're going to keep hold of the thread, take the needle and wind it around twice. Come back down. Oh, let me try this again here. I'm both trying to make sure you can see it on camera and get it here, so got a hold of it. Winding the needle around twice, and then come back down through the hole, and then kind of pull it kind of taut there, and then just let the thread go through that hole, and that is a French knot. Let's do some more. Always worrying with myself, trying to make sure that I'm doing what I need to be doing and staying on camera. So we're just going around twice with the needle, coming back down to that hole. Just trying to pull it kind of taut, and then let it go. And French knot is just so much fun. It really is just, yeah, really super fun. We'll stitch there or not. Bloop. Here we go. I actually just noticed I didn't do this little section of the coral. Let's go ahead and go back to that. I don't want to miss it just because it's a little different than just going in a straight line. And so I wanted to make sure to show you all how that went so that you wouldn't kind of wonder what you need to be doing. So let me see if I've got just enough on my needle here to go ahead and do this. So let me go ahead and knot this thread. It's a good time just to show you how I do it while we're at it. Just wind it around. There we go. Just slide it down my needle and down the thread. I've got a little knot. All right, let's do some more back stitching. Just when you thought you were done, huh? So for this, it's gonna be pretty easy. But again, it's not just exactly a straight line. So I really did want to show you. So I'll make the first stitch, and it'll come down to about the middle of this little bud. And then we'll come up at the base of the bud where it meets the stem there, and then just go back towards the base of that first stitch. There we go. And then we'll just come up sort of in the middle of that first stitch and come back down around the middle of the second stitch on this side, and then do it again for the other side. So you just come up there, pull through, and come back down about the middle of that initial second stitch there. And so that's what that bud should look like. Did not want to leave this video without showing you. So let me go ahead and officially get the coral tied off here. And then we can move on to something other than the back stitch, I promise. Okay, so let's go ahead and we will do, oh no, we'll save that for later. That's also the back stitch. Let's go ahead and we will work on the green, which is the stem stitch. I was like, we've got to at least shake this up a little. So I'm just gonna come here, and so let me just show you. Do you see this stem stitch there? These are kind of little lines that almost just stack, almost very rope-like. So I'm just bringing my needle up and then back down to the first stitch, and then instead of just coming straight down like the start of the back stitch, I'm actually going to bring my needle back through the middle of the stitch. And then now you can, I've chosen this side, but you can also have your needle and thread coming off the other side of this, but you just want to pick a side, and that's really what makes the stem stitch. So when you make a stitch and you come back choosing a side and sticking with that side for each section and making sure you don't, you know, your thread isn't off to this side this time, that side next time. Make sure you just maintain consistency. It's really the name of the game for a nice looking stem stitch. And there you have it. There is the stem stitch. So when I say just make sure you maintain consistency through each section, I would consider like this a section, I would consider this a section, I would consider this a section. So you can go one way here, another way here, a different way here, as long as you're not going off to one side for one stitch, off to one side on the next, off, you know, that will not create this nice consistent look. But you can, you know, again, just do one kind of stitch here and then off to the other side here and the other side here. As long as you just maintain that consistency for each section, then you're good to go and it'll look good. There we go. Got this tied off. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the thread and we'll keep on going. So now we're going to use the kind of bluish grayish thread for the split stitch. And I'll just kind of show you that up close, what that looks like. So I'm going to start here. And then we're going to make that stitch just a lot like the stem stitch where I come up through the middle. But what I'm going to do instead of going off to one side is I'm actually going to take my needle and put it between these two pieces of floss, because that is the split stitch. It's splitting the floss there, the two pieces. Oh, let me go ahead and make sure I don't lose my thread here. There we go. So we're just coming up through about the middle of the stitch. And then just turn this so that you can see. Just coming up between those two pieces of floss in order to split the stitch. So let's just keep going here. This is the stitch where it can get kind of tedious, just because as the thread kind of naturally twists a little, it can be hard to get in between those two pieces of floss. So every once in a while you might just want to let your needle just kind of hang there so that you can untwist the thread, and also just not having too long of a piece of floss that you're working with can also really help, because the longer it is, the more it can twist sometimes, and having a shorter piece to work with can help ease that frustration a bit too. Let's make sure we get in between there. So I think this is my 10th embroidery video in 5 days, and a lot's happened. There have definitely been some where I've got some knots that I've had to unknot on camera, because once you've started an embroidery kit, it's pretty hard to start over. It's a lot of work. So once you start making that video, I've kind of just got to keep going come what may. And so far, thankfully, that hasn't been the case for this one, but this seems to be the tutorial where I have to go back and to the same color thread because I forgot something. That just seems to be this video, because as I was doing this, I'm just going to put my needle down to finish this off. There we go. But as I was doing this, I noticed I didn't show you with the green the stem stitch for the leaves. So I'm gonna get the green again, and we're gonna keep working. It's okay. I just really want to make sure that I don't forget to show you all some of these things. And honestly, you know, it's great that I've remembered while I'm still making the video. So I'm gonna take that as a win. So let me pick back up my green floss here and just go ahead, get that knotted again. Boop. And I'm just gonna come up through the base of this little leaf, and I'm just going to make a stitch, come up through the middle. I'm just going off to the left here, like I did before, and then making another little stitch. You may see that my stitches are smaller for this one. It's such a smaller surface area, and then also I was kind of doing longer stitches here just because I wanted to make sure you could see what I was doing. So and then just coming off at the peak of this leaf, and then I'm coming back down to the base. I'm just gonna go in at it again, making a stitch, and then coming up through the middle, I'm going to go off to the left and go down and make another stitch and go up to the middle and come back up the left again. Then go right back up to the top of that leaf. And then on this side, I'm actually going to go make a stitch. I'm actually going to come out towards the right so that because the leaf is smaller, bigger, and then smaller again. And so once we came out the left on the other side, I want to come out the right on this side so that it gives it that shape of being wider in the middle and then getting skinnier towards the tip of the leaf there. So there you have it. There is the leaf. And let me go ahead and again for good, I'm gonna knot the green and I'll keep going. So while we're at it, we might as well do the very last back stitch. The brown is the back stitch, and I know we're pros by now, so let's just do a memory check. We're gonna go ahead and do the back stitch for this branch here, and then we'll move on to the last color of thread, which is just sort of that orangish, brassish, goldish color for the little sparkles or stars, if you will. And that will be the satin stitch. So we've got the back stitch, we've got the split stitch, we've got the stem stitch, we've got French knots, we've got the satin stitch. So although it feels like we're doing a lot of back stitching, we've learned quite a few stitches today, and you're going to be able to take that knowledge with you on to bigger and better things once you're done with this. So, all right, so there you have it. The brown part is the back stitch, and I'm going to tie this off, and then we'll get to those sparkles, and then you'll know all of the stitches. It'll be pretty great. Alright, I'm going to tie this off, or cut it off, and then let's do the satin stitch. So that's for these here. We're going to do it right here. I've just lost my thread, so let me go ahead and get it through the needle again. The last stitch, it had to happen on the last stitch. That's just the way it goes sometimes. There we go. So what I usually like to do is I'll split it down the middle, and then I'll go off one side and then back the other for little designs like this. What a satin stitch is basically, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that because I want to show you exactly what a satin stitch is, kind of from beginning to end. So what the satin stitch is you're basically putting one line of floss, either one right beside the other or one right above or below the other, just depending on which direction you're going. I chose to go vertically for these sparkles. You could go horizontally. It's really just arbitrary. So what you want to do is, I came up where this sort of orangey color meets the green, and then going back down on the other side here. This is a little teeny tiny stitch for these end parts, and then coming up again right beside that stitch, and then coming down right beside it. It is one straight stitch right after the other, right beside, or again above or below the last stitch. And it'll be more apparent what that looks like as the stitch gets a little bit bigger. There we go. Just coming up and then coming right back down. Now I'm coming up through the middle here. Making sure I'm off to the right of this last stitch and making sure my thread's nice and taut, since that is a longer stitch. And coming up again. It's a really easy stitch. Just gotta make sure you're going nice and straight. It's really all there is to it, and making sure you're staying close to the other stitch. So there you have it for that. I mean, that's really what those are. And if you want to go ahead and take a look at it overall, this is roundabouts what it should look like when you're finished. Of course, yours is going to look different because every kit does, thanks to us all being unique individuals, and that's what I absolutely love about embroidery. Thank you so much.